Good afternoon, Tracy Bates with Knowledge Infusion, and I'd like to thank you for joining us. Today, Knowledge Infusion expert Heidi Spirgi, President, and Mike Brennan, Director of KI OnDemand, will offer the second webinar in a two-part series highlighting the results from the 5th Annual Talent Management Survey with HR Executive Magazine. Now, this presentation is presented via computer-based audio. If you have any problems with the audio, please chat into the screen and I will assist you. The audio backup number is also posted on the screen in case you do experience any issues with audio. All of you will receive an email with instructions how to download both the slides and the replay after today's presentation. We want this event to be interactive, so please post any comments or questions on the lower right Q&A panel on the screen. We will be during the Q&A panel throughout today's discussion. You can also follow today's discussion live on Twitter at #KISurvey2. At this, I would like to introduce today's presenters. Knowledge Infusion President Heidi Spirgi is calling from sunny California. Hi, Heidi.
And welcome, everyone.
We also have Director Mike Brennan, KI OnDemand, who is joining us from Boston. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So started. With no further ado, I will hand it over to Heidi.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and I want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy days to join us today for Part 2 of our 5th Annual Talent Management Survey with HR Executive Magazine. A lot of really interesting results that I'm very excited to share with you today. And as Tracy said, I do want to encourage everyone to make this as interactive as possible. Mike and I will be monitoring the Q&A chat panel throughout the session. We'll be taking questions as we go, so please, 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 if there's something that we touch on that is of particular interest or maybe something that's not here, please use that Q&A panel to type those questions to us, and we'll be fielding them as we go. So in terms of getting used to and comfortable with that Q&A panel, why don't you all let us know where you're calling from and what the weather is like where you are. And as Tracy mentioned, I am calling from beautiful, sunny Danville, California today. So the sun is shining and it's a good day. So first of all, for those of you who are not familiar with Knowledge Infusion, I did want to share a little bit of background on who we are, what we do, and what makes us different. First of all, Knowledge Infusion is a bit different from other consultancies. We were founded based on the fundamental principle of trying to help organizations drive business outcomes and really achieve the vision for their organization, whether that vision may be gaining the market share within their industry, whether it may be moving into new markets, whether it may be moving from an international organization to a global organization, whether it may be infusing a higher level of innovation into the culture and fabric of their organization. Those are the things that we work to understand within our customer base and then ultimately help build the strategies, help execute those strategies, help our customers measure the strategies to understand whether or not they are actually achieving their vision and successfully executing the strategies, and then ultimately on an ongoing basis continuing to evolve those strategies. So on the next slide, what you'll see is what we call our KI1 approach to working with our customers. It's a full solution way of working with organizations that really helps them not only build strategies, but ultimately deploy strategies, measure progress against the goals articulated during the strategic phase of the engagement, and then ultimately extending those capabilities, whether it be through technology, whether it be process change or organizational and people change. We do this in two different ways. We work with our customers in the area of transformational consulting, where we work with them on individual deep dive engagements, helping them solve a particular business problem from through identifying the strategies, building the plans, selecting the technology, and then ultimately deploying that strategy, whether that means configuring technology, redesigning business processes, or managing change, and then measuring progress against that. We also work with our customers through our innovative KI OnDemand service offering. KI OnDemand is a membership-based service where our customers work with us on a 12-month basis, and they receive unlimited ad hoc inquiries and time with our consultants. We pair our customers with the consultants that have the right knowledge and the right experience to most specifically address the business needs that they're faced with, as well as work with them in the form of ongoing and rolling workshops going deeper into particular areas. So as you can see here, in each of these for KI One methodology, we offer specific services. Many of our customers do work with us starting from that strategy phase all the way through to continuing to partner with them through a KI OnDemand engagement to help them continue to evolve and grow and deepen their strategies and their execution. Others will work with us on individual engagements in the areas of change management, configuration of software, etc. So at that, enough about Knowledge Infusion. I would like to turn things over to Mike to talk with you about our survey. Mike?
Hey, I share the pain of a couple of you, one from Brennan, another from Harrisburg. I'll actually be week after next. I'll make sure to look up Mark when I'm there. I'm in Boston today where it's about 80 degrees and kind of soupy out, so hoping for a better weekend. But without further ado, let's get to the survey results. I want to thank all of you in the audience for joining us, and want to extend a special thanks to those of you who took the time to complete the survey that we administered with our Executive Magazine. Thanks to the time you took there. You're making us all a little smarter. So speaking of you respondents, to parts 1 and 2 of our survey, here's a profile of the sample population. So we had 442 people representing organizations, most of which are headquartered in North America, about 85% of them. They represented organizations big and small across vertical industries. Respondents play a variety of roles within their organizations. So we actually had a pretty even split of HR and non-HR titles. So the slight majority work in HR with titles like Chief HR Officer, Director of HR Generalist, a lot of directors and VPs of functional areas within HR, learning and development, staffing, and so forth. The non-HR titles that we had, many of which were from small organizations, were titles like CEO and President, Manager, Director, Partner, Owner. In terms of the survey, request a Q&A panel for the deck. As we mentioned during part 1 of the survey, we'll both avail all of you of the deck as well as the raw data. So we've got each of the questions we asked for parts 1 and part 2 of the survey presentation broken down in individual tabs, pivot tables galore. So for those of you that like to slice and dice data like I do, you'll be able to do so to your heart's content. So we'll make sure that we make those data available to you who are interested in slicing and dicing. So with respect to parts 1 and part 2, what Ken and I covered on May 9th, and pardon me, Heidi, I should have mentioned that the last minute substitution of you partnering with me on this webinar as opposed to Jason. Heidi is much more fun to listen to, great contrast and style to me, so I'm sure everyone will benefit from the balanced thinking that she provides. She brings a right brain to the table, whereas I'm more of a left brainer.
You're too kind, Mike, but thank you.
So for part 1, the major takeaways that we covered there was that 2012 was a somewhat bullish year for talent management investments. A major theme there being that we've got a slowly improving economy, and the demand for highly skilled people is outstripping the supply, and dollars are starting to free up to make investments in infrastructure, both human and technological, to manage talent more effectively. Some takeaway was that management is HR's seat at the table, and that HR will have to work more collaboratively to keep that seat. A lot of focus in the last webinar on functional HR governance. We'll certainly touch on that today. Most again, challenges to managing talent effectively have nothing to do with technology. So the first part of the webinar, there was a deeper focus on people and process, where as in part two, what we're doing is taking a deep dive on the technology. So to an extent, we covered HR bringing the right data to the table. We'll certainly do a deeper dive on that today. So major takeaways, which we'll cover in detail as we go through the results. Number one, as a core to 2020 being a bullish year for talent management investments overall, a bullish year for HR technology as well. Market consolidation is a good thing, so we'll cover what we mean by that. Infusion brings some biases to the table in our interpretation of the survey results based on our work with clients, and we'll certainly cover those as we go through today's results. And number three, talent management needs to become more social and more mobile. So those of you that are interested in benchmarking what others are thinking and spending in terms of social and mobile support of talent management processes for segment their population, we'll be that in some detail as well. So going to the first major takeaway, 2012 is a somewhat bullish year for HR technology investment. Now, in times when you're dealing with a tight market for skilled labor, you'd expect to see more money being invested in talent management, and that's just what our respondents told us. So the chart that you see is that many organizations, about half, are remaining pat with their level of investment in HR technology. 30% plan increases, and only 10% are planning a decrease relative to last year. So that's evidence of a slowly improving economy. What Knowledge Infusion is seeing in our business with clients is lots of system turnover, not only of talent management technologies, which is the focus of this survey, but of all HR technologies. And in our preparation for the webinar, Heidi, I know you had some thoughts on looking at the entire HR technology portfolio overall when thinking strategy. Anything you'd care to share with the audience now?
I mean, one of the interesting things that we're seeing is, there has been a significant focus on talent management and talent management technologies over really the last 5 to 7 years. So really no surprising news here. As Mike said, we do see both in our customer base as well as the data a slight increase in terms of investments, and that's what you would expect with the economy. But one of the interesting things that we are seeing both anecdotally in our customer base, but also in another survey that we've recently conducted, is that 54% of organizations, which is really, I think, a really statistic relevant number, 54% of the organizations in this other we recently conducted said that they are likely or very likely to replace or upgrade or re-implement their core HR platform. So what is new and different in 2012 is that organizations, while they continue to invest in talent management, they're also starting to look much more in a much more serious fashion around what to do with core. And the impact that has and the meaning for that for talent management is a few things. Number one, as we've seen in the market, there's been a lot of consolidation as well as investment in the area of talent management from core HR vendors. So if we look at the state of the integrated suites between core HR and talent management, we're starting to see, I think, a much robust and deeper set of functionality which covers both core and talent management. So we can see, the movements by SAP and Oracle and the acquisitions of SuccessFactors and Taleo, clearly Workday and its build out of the talent management capabilities in its core platform. This rethinking of core has wide-reaching implications for talent management as well. So that core and those core investments, we will also anticipate to see organizations starting to reassess their existing investments in talent management and starting to follow suit with some talent management replacements, implementing the talent management capabilities of their core HR provider.
Heidi, in terms of the talent investments specifically, we asked the question focused on talent management. Please indicate whether your organization will increase or decrease its investments, services, and technology in the following areas. And the blue bars indicate increases, the green bars no changes to spend, and the orange bars decreases. So as you can see here, only about 1 in 10 plan to decrease spending really across all areas. So that bar that you see there, too small percentage to actually put a labeled number on it, was less than 10% for every area, learning and development, performance management, and so forth. As you can see, the greatest expectations for increased investments are in the areas related to aligning and building internal talent. So you see learning and development, about half expect increases in investments in the area of learning and development. A lot of clients are become more judicious about how they spend their learning and development dollars, which are precious, by focusing on pivotal segments of the workforce that are tied to key components of the business strategy. So what people are in pivotal roles, what people have potential to slot into pivotal roles, and they need to be developed to perform in those roles effectively. Performance and goal management is certainly a move toward more objective management of performance and tying assessment of performance to not only learning development, but various compensation as well. You can also see workforce analytics very high on the list. We'll cover workforce analytics and planning in detail as we look at the other takeaways from the survey. But Heidi, I know you had some thoughts around workforce and analytics and planning, that you wanted to share folks based on what you're seeing in our client base.
So first of all, from a data perspective, this workforce analytics and planning perspective has seen a significant surge in numbers relative to past years that we've done the survey. So, well, not surprising from the perspective of what we're seeing and feeling within our customer base in the market, there's certainly a ton of energy here, which on the one hand, I think is very positive for the market. It means that organizations are starting to really understand the importance of decision support, the value that can be had from workforce analytics and planning capabilities. The only thing that I would comment on here, and which I find a bit concerning, is the question was specific as it relates to investment. And there still is a significant gap in many organizations, I would say, readiness to really be able to deploy and workforce analytics and planning applications in a meaningful way, and their capabilities themselves. So the biggest gap that we see in the market is in the area of organizational capability around analytics and planning. And sometimes, I'd say fairly often, we see a tendency to think that the technology is somehow the panacea. In this area, almost more than any other, the ability to be able to have the internal business acumen to define the measures that are meaningful to your organization, work with business leaders outside of HR to really understand what is meaningful to measure and what is not meaningful. And let's not just create scorecards for scorecards' sake, as an example, or dashboards for dashboard's sake, but what's meaningful to the business? Do we have the underlying data to support it? Because no workforce analytics and planning application is going to solve any issues with data quality, data integrity, and simply meaningful data that's relevant to the organization. How do organizations define and work with measurement across the organization, all the way from business leaders to HR business partners to business analysts to the people running the technology? There's a lot of handoffs that are needed and a really very specific process that needs to be developed in order to ensure that the analytics and the workforce plans are actually meaningful. And then even just skills and capability. How are you going to equip your HR team as well as your business leaders to really understand and analyze the information, determine actions are needed, tell the stories around the data, and then ultimately take action on it. So that's the concern to me when I see 46%, because I do think there's still a big gap. And that's an area that we're working with a lot of organizations on, is trying to close that gap so the technology can actually deliver value.
Thanks for what Heidi just referred to, everyone. We did cover during part one a lot of the people and process challenges we focused on. Heidi enumerated with respect to HR's capabilities, the incorporation of standards for data and metrics, the need for greater governance there, incorporating data and analytics into HR service delivery model in a way that makes sense to measures. So we share the results of via the deck and the raw results from part two today with all of you, but we'll also make available the replay as well as the results from part one for those of you that weren't able to make it. So we also touched on a few other things related to the second big takeaway, which is market consolidation is a good thing, and a reference to a bias earlier that Knowledge Infusion has, and I certainly have, and that is that over the past couple of years, Heidi made mention of some of the bigger acquisitions in the talent management technology market and the overall HR technology market. This is out really to a decrease in the number of enterprise software providers that buyers of talent management technology like you have to choose from to support all the areas that we just looked at on the previous slide. In fact, in the past 24 months, there's been about $10.5 billion worth of mergers and acquisitions in the HR technology market, and that's very significant when you look at the actual size of the market. And as a consultant, working with Heidi and many of our other colleagues on a day-to-day basis with clients to help them select what software will serve their needs, the bias I want to really touch on here is that we think consolidation is a good thing really for two different reasons. One, it provides our clients and all of you with an opportunity to manage their workforce data in fewer places, which makes it easier to generate insights needed to support sound ethics that support decision-making, as Heidi just referenced. And number two, it provides a more seamless user experience for the workforce across all those different processes that we just looked at and more when you consider the core transitional processes enabled by other elements of HR technology. And things not only easier for the workforce in terms of a more seamless experience, makes it easier on a lot of you in the audience that are charged with change management surrounding your deployments. So the bias, I also want to cap this bias by saying that personally I don't think the recent consolidation that we've referred to in this presentation is going to kill off innovation at the expense of the HR buyers who need it. I mean, the HR vendors are still far ahead of what the market's actually ready to adopt. So I don't see any risk of that happening as a result of the recent acquisitions, at least in the near term. And I haven't really seen pricing suffer. So when you think about things macroeconomically, are we down to too few providers that they've got all the pricing power in the world and organizations are spending more because they're trapped? No. I would say overall, over the past not just 2 years, but 15 years, all the cost of HR technology as a budget item have come down. So we're not at a point where recent consolidation is forcing companies to spend more money on technology than they used to. In fact, the trend line shows the exact opposite based on the budgets that we've helped clients build based on some of the selection work that we've done with different vendors in the marketplace, as Heidi referenced when providing the overview of our services. And one other just point here, I do think that given the capital that some of these larger players have, they'll not continue to sink that in some of the smaller fish, as you see in the slide here, but they'll put money into their own development efforts to innovate for the marketplace. So that's our bias, but certainly don't want to think too narrowly and want to get your impression before we go into the next set of survey results, which focuses on buyers' impressions of vendors and how they evaluate them. So point number one is all the consolidation that has recently taken place in the HR technology market been a good thing? Interesting your thoughts. Anything to add as folks begin to answer the following question?
Well, I always love to make make predictions on these questions. And this is a tough one. I'm really interested to see where the field is going to come in. Hopefully we didn't bias people with our point of view. I'm going to say it's going to be around 50-50. I think that there's still a fair amount of skepticism out there, which, while I think overall it's a good thing, I do think the proof is in the execution and really understanding, how these acquisitions are going to be managed over time, and whether we'll continue to see this levels of innovation and focus on business solution versus, HR applications. I think that's gonna, that's gonna be telling. And the other thing I'm waiting to see is whether, these large organizations make any moves to really begin to, realize the big vision, which is really being able to blend and combine, operational or financial data with people data. And obviously they're in the position to do that since they, have applications which meet business needs outside of HR. And so I think that's, once again, I think a huge opportunity, which will be interesting to see what happens over the next 5 to 10 years as acquisitions fully play out. 50-50.
Another thing about having you on, Heidi, is that you're more open-minded than I am. So I just want to call that.
That was open-minded. I thought that sounded quite skeptical. Too early to tell, 59%. 34%, only 7% saying no. Okay, so there's not a lot of cynicism out there. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, me too. And what others think, so feel free to submit comments via the Q&A panel in addition to any questions that you have. So now if we dive into takeaway number 2. So we'll go over a series of questions tied to this take of, our view that consolidation is a good thing. A good thing. That's probably the more appropriate way to put it. So the survey question here is, which statement best describes your approach to talent management technology? And as you can see, based on a series of choices on the left, we've got taking the win here in terms of best description of approach. More important to have an integrated suite across all of talent management. Second, 26%, more important to have 1 or 2 modules that fulfill specific requirements. And this, I'd say for many of our clients, and Knowledge Infusion works mostly with large and mid-sized enterprises, many of which are global. I would say that the percent going in before they've engaged with Knowledge Infusion is slightly higher in terms of favoring integration before they work with us. And I'd say it's close to 100% after they've worked with us. So in terms of the alignment that we try to drive there, it's real integration across the suite. It may take a few years to get there, but our philosophy is based on the reasons that I mentioned earlier with respect to seamless experience, workforce, and unified that Heidi and I have been touching on. That's what you should be shooting for. And the trend of integration, to the second point on the right, will continue, and truly believe that it'll be supported by both vendor product maturity and continued market consolidation.
Yeah, one of the things that I would add to that, Mike, that I just think is, I just want to reemphasize is that, when we work with our customers, we try really hard to help them understand that talent management, when you do it well, it's not a series of processes, it's not a series of piece parts, or even a series of strategies. It's a singular capability, and from a business leader's perspective, it is entirely unified, and it is entirely the capability to have understand the demand for talent and be able to fill that demand in the right way. And therefore, a lack of integration or not focusing on integration we consistently undermine that ability to, deliver talent management in a way that's meaningful to the business. It may make a world of sense from an HR process, an HR program, an HR structure perspective, but once you step outside of HR, take talent management down to its parts, whether it be different applications, just processes, or different teams, or even something as simple as multiple brands of your talent management technology portfolio, just serves to confuse the business. So just encourage people. I'm hoping that we see that 29% rise and that an integrated suite is understood as just how essential that is to delivering to the business.
To also point out, we got a comment, another great benefit of consolidation is taking management out of its silo and connecting it to other business systems, for example, finance, CRM, etc. I want to thank Chad for submitting that. Also notice that we've begun to get some questions via the Q&A panel. I just want to address a couple of those quick. The first from Tony was, how do you account for the finding that organizations have trouble finding and retaining talent when U.S. unemployment is over 8%? And as I mentioned earlier, most of the survey sample is from North America. A few reasons for that. The first is that the economy is improving. Second is that, and you can speak to your experience, I've worked at KI for about 6 years now. We've been in existence for about 8. Heidi and I were both in human capital roles prior to our roles at Knowledge Infusion. I gotta say, I've never really seen a sustained drop in terms of folks looking for talent to fill certain roles. So in working with clients over the past 6 years, I've heard both we're filling, all of our requisitions in the time that we need, and some of that has to do with, good people being hard to find. Yes, it also has to do with governance, which is another question that was submitted. As the organization, under the auspices of HR in partnership with the business, actually defined, what roles are needed, what skills are needed, to actually go out and assess the talent, and then taking those requirements and applying them to technology or potential technology to support them. So one of the things that Jason often speaks to is that LinkedIn probably knows more about your talent than you do, and if LinkedIn does, so do competitors, and what are you doing about it? And some of you who attended part 1 may remember I mentioned one of the things that keeps me up as a consultant at night is that during part 1, only 25% of the survey sample said that their investments in talent management have in improved visibility over the talent they have. So that does have something to do with establishing standards for job descriptions, skills, and so forth. Some of it is rolling out the technology more effectively. A lot of it does come back to capital management governance to establish the standards, the technology requirements, and then ensuring, to the last point about change management, making sure that it's deployed in a way that people will the data. Anything to add there?
I think you said it all. I mean, governance is absolutely essential, and thank you for the individual who called that out in the Q&A panel. It ties in also, I would say, what HR also needs to do is not just focusing on cross-functional governance within HR, but governance between HR and other functions within the business. So if management is a business strategy and not an HR process or team, you have to look at a sustainable way of working with other aspects of the business and your business leaders to develop your strategy, plan your priorities, determine your technology footprint and portfolio, and ultimately engage the workforce. And if you don't do that, that's when HR runs the risk of just being viewed as, going back to one of the key takeaways from the first part of the first webinar on the topic, but losing the seat at the table. It's about the business, and it's not about HR. I think we should move on to commenting on some of these statistics, because I think this is quite surprising in many ways.
So when we actually forced folks to answer the question, what's the most important factor when selecting a talent management application, functionality came up as number 1 by a pretty wide margin. As you can see, 41%. That surprised us, and I think that has to do with the client that we work with being larger in nature. I think there are more savvy buyers, more experienced buyers of HR technology in large companies, not uniformly, but certainly more likely to find big HRMS departments with experienced professionals there. And for them, integrating processes becomes really number one. And as they work together with their cross-functional counterparts in talent management areas like recruitment, areas like learning and development and so forth, compensation, I think that governance does bring integrated data and business processes to the fore, to the point where we've seen it work at Knowledge Infusion. You have people trade-offs, and the way the benefits of integrated data and business processes, you do find some of those functional silo owners willing to make trade-offs in area functionality. That the admin panel isn't quite as user-friendly, or certain buttons don't appeal to folks. So I surprised when we looked at the data, ease of use, 21%. This is a question that we've actually asked over the past 4 years of the 5 that the survey has been done, and ease of use has moved from the most important thing to this year 3, and a lot of that has to do, I believe, with table stakes. A lot of the innovation that has happened with the suite providers, some of whom have been acquired, others remain independent. A lot of the innovation there has just been about more user-friendly technology, and that's eaten into the market share of the ERP providers that we mentioned earlier.
So one thing that I want to comment on, and just, first of all, this surge in the importance of functionality definitely is surprising. And at first look, I felt it was a bit concerning, because within our experience in our customer base is by far and away the most important success criteria is not depth of functionality, but it is ease of use and integrated data and business processes. So what makes projects fail is very often what I'll call organ rejection by the company, by the business, due to either being very difficult to use or not delivering true value to the business, and it just being another tool or hoop to jump through. And so those two criteria, what we've seen is over the past 3 years, those two have sort of flip-flopped year over year in terms of the number 1, number 2 spots with functionality, decreasing in importance until this year. And as Mike said, the way that I read this is, number 1, I think it's a good thing, because I read the ease of use falling because it is table stakes, and I think we've come a long way in terms of the usability of HR systems. If you think back to where we were 4 years ago, and you look at a demo 4 years ago versus a typical talent management demo today, we've come a long way. And when I say we, it's not just 1 or 2 vendors, but it's a fairly universal statement. So that's a very good thing. Another thing, in terms of integrated data and business processes, one of the things that we are seeing in our customer base is that more and more evaluations and technology evaluations really come down to 2 vendors. And those 2 vendors very often are already incumbents within the customer base. They already have 1 or more applications deployed and live, and they also have suite capabilities. So to a certain degree, like ease of use, we're also seeing that a lot of selections, organizations understand the inherent value of integrated data and business processes, and actually going head to head between 2 suites, and then saying, okay, which is going to meet our functional needs better. I think there's a lot of complexity underneath these numbers as a result of consolidation in the market, as well as the building out of the suites for those vendors who have not been part of the consolidation movement, as well as then the progress around ease of use. I think the important takeaway for businesses is where you don't let functionality trump integration and usability. Absolutely essential to your long-term success. Mike?
Thank you. So a question that we wanted to focus on was, what is the preferred delivery model for HR technology investments? And the headline on the slide reads, market still mixed. These results haven't changed very over the past few years, but one thing that we've seen consistently over the past few years is that on-premise deployments, the preference for on-premise deployments, has gradually lost favor to on-demand and hosted by a third party. So, moving to the quote-unquote cloud with one of those two models. And to see, we our client base, it's being driven by lower capital costs. It's being driven by shorter deployment times enabled by SaaS technologies. It's being driven by configurability. Customization is a dirty word in most of our clients based on their experience having, I've heard the term bastardized thrown around quite a few times, even recently when folks refer to their legacy implementations, that it doesn't even look like the technology that they bought, which precludes upgrades and so forth. So the configurability of SaaS providers has definitely been a benefit to the market in terms of being able to enable those shorter deployment times and provide to leverage best practices around process support and usability that those SaaS providers have learned over the past few years as they've taken market share away from those bigger ERP providers. And those ERP providers, as we pointed out earlier, part of the acquisitions that have taken place with Oracle buying Taleo, SAP buying SuccessFactors, they recognize it. I mean, this is, there was a decision point where, they tried their own development efforts around cloud-based HR software, and they decided to buy those providers because they could get them to market more quickly. They could learn the best practices as well as some of the mistakes that those vendors made with the SaaS deployment model and supporting on an ongoing basis, and providing the ability to continually innovate. I mean, that is something that we don't see really slowing down in the foreseeable future, particularly relative to the pace at which HR is willing to adopt innovation in the form of new functionality, and we'll be touching on social and mobile in just a few moments. Heidi, you add there?
No, I think you covered it all.
So, as these first two takeaways go and the survey results that we've covered, some of the recommendations that we have here is that it is not the technology. We approach everything people and process first, then focus on technology. So step one, define your strategy, desired outcomes, and a plan to achieve them. To some of the discussions had earlier around governance, who is governing that strategy? Who's making what decisions? What governance structure is being put into place to make sure that strategy is managed on an ongoing basis as it's continually refreshed? An HR technology strategy, a talent management strategy that it supports, those aren't static. Anyone who operates in today's business environment and thinks that way is probably soon to retire or be forced into retirement. Point two, define business requirements based on vision and future state processes. As Heidi mentioned earlier, we do a lot of process work here at KI. When we do that process work, we focus on it with respect to two angles. The first, focus on keeping it simple. No process should be more complex than it needs to be if you want to get folks to adopt it. Therefore, getting input from the business in addition to HR with respect to focus area number two, decision support, making sure that you get the data out of the process that you need. So make it simple, make it easy for people to enter the data that you as an HR function need to support decision-making as it relates to workforce planning, as it relates to individual decisions with respect to promotions, transfers, terminations, and so forth. And that decisions that all of us need to make as employees of an organization about our careers when we get out of bed every morning and go to work. Third recommendation, assess current technology portfolio's ability to satisfy the need and be out of mind latest releases. A lot of what Knowledge Infusion finds when walking into a lot of our client situations, the vast majority, in fact, that we're never starting with a blank slate. Where we do some chest pounding, like we're doing on this webinar, with respect to how you should approach HR technology and invest in it, but we understand we're never walking into a blank slate. There's already technology in place, much of which is underutilized. Some that also need to be replaced or upgraded. They may have invested in technology and be paying for it on an ongoing basis and just not realize they have it to take advantage of and haven't necessarily communicated with the vendors to understand how innovations they've made in recent years. The vendors can support what the needs of the workforce are. And then lastly, determine what changes, additions, or upgrades are necessary and plan to invest accordingly.
So, before we move on to this next topic, interesting question came in from the audience. It says, I'm struggling with your last comment, don't let functionality trump integration and usability. If I look at an app that integrates and is easy to use but does not meet my business needs, why would I buy it? Do you like that? I know it was my comment, but I'm going to ask you to respond.
Well, it's like we're on a client side, Heidi. You make comments.
Nice, huh?
So I'll qualify Heidi's comment just a bit. What happened is that organizations get hung up on functionality that doesn't necessarily support must-have business requirements and get hung up on vendor can't do with a particular piece of functionality that at the end of the day may mean something to a power user who's evaluating the technology. The benefits of integrated data for the thousands of managers or potentially thousands of managers and employees that need the greater ease of use, that need the integrated data to drive decisions about talent. We tend to encourage them to make trade-offs as it relates to quality. A lot of the action that's taken place over the past few years, we've seen functional gaps in individual areas like talent acquisition, variable comp, performance management, and so forth. They've been closed, and the need to focus functionality and have trump integration, not a good way to think about it. Heidi, anything to add?
Nope. My thoughts exactly. Thank you, Mike.
Okay. I always want to qualify when you put words in your boss's mouth. So the changing workforce, in terms of mobile and social, this next key takeaway, that we brought to the survey results that we're about to go over, based on what we're hearing from our clients, is that changing workforce. It is more mobile, it's more social, it's always on. That's no longer an issue, and a lot of our global clients, their international counterparts, and we're working with client sponsors in the U.S. have leapfrogged. So when we do our discovery work with respect to mobile and social, they're innovating use of mobile and social technologies. And for those that are lagging, so to speak, all acknowledge that the work is changing, and they need to address all these work trends of mobility, socialization, personalizing things. This the last point on the side of the slide, KCAT, that acronym I want you to take away, not content, analytics, and transactions, based on roles to support decision making. Should I approve this requisition? Should I hire this person? Should I grant spot bonus? Analyze to someone where they are. It could be someone on the shop floor who needs to assess the technical knowledge of someone, maybe capture a video of it. It's really where the workforce is and personalizing the experience. And we as consumers has grown more demanding of enterprise applications because of what we've seen in our own consumer lives with respect to online banking, online retailing, and so forth. So the universal agreement that this stuff is impacting our technology and organizations' approach to talent management. More importantly, what differs is the pace at which organizations will act. So there are competing priorities in some cases in terms of where to invest their money. In some cases, they don't have the technology infrastructure, haven't made investments in hardware for folks standardized on what devices folks are using. So some are innovating in terms of adoption, early adopters, others are lagging for a variety of reasons, but there's a universal understanding and acknowledgement, at least in our experience, that all things are indeed changing the worst, their behaviors, and should and will have an impact on organizational talent management strategies. So what about, in terms of your understanding, could people, any of your organization's key roles, benefit from talent management being supported by mobile and or social technologies? Love to let them where folks are before we delve these final two results.
I think this will be an interesting one to see come back. I'm going to just keep some interesting stats that I recently read about, particularly about mobile and where the world is today and where we're going. So IDC recently published a survey which showed that currently there's over 1 billion mobile workers worldwide, with that estimated growing to 1.3 billion by 2015. So the way that work gets on is rapidly changing and rapidly becoming much more mobile. In North America alone, in 2010, 75% of the workforce was mobile. 75% of the workforce. So that to me was a very almost a staggering number. I think one of the challenges is where, as you mentioned, where it is in the priority list, as well as where are they HR technology vendors in terms of their evolution of their mobile capabilities.
Well, I'll be curious to see the results when they come in. The question we asked about focus on social first and then mobile. In terms of marketing, asked the question: does your organization currently support any of the following talent management functional areas with social networking and collaboration? A whopping 63% indicated do so for candidate sourcing. Was actually surprised not to see that number higher, just based on the presence of social networks like LinkedIn, Facebook, and so forth, and the success stories that we've heard and help our clients implement. Performance management is a bit higher than I thought it might be. Development and performance management, both between a quarter and a third of the survey sample said that they're already using social networking and collaboration to support. You can see some of the uses for performance management that we've highlighted. One in which, from a performance management perspective, social really addresses a lot of what people hate about performance management and the flaws and processes that were designed decades ago. With respect to a manager who doesn't see me on a day-to-day basis and really is in a good position to rate my performance, or is reaching out to folks at the last minute in preparation for a focal review of some kind, scrambling to get data to justify a rating of some kind. I mean, it really provides the ability to align on goals on an ongoing basis and to gather feedback on folks, providing a fuller picture. We leverage at Knowledge Infusion social networking for our own performance management purposes. We're a good use case. We're an entirely virtual organization. Many of us don't work with the folks that we report to on a day-to-day basis, so we can speak from firsthand experience, not only our work with clients, that it works. And there was a net increase expected in the use of social networking and collaboration. So those organizations that already use it plan to use it more, and a lot of the folks that indicated they haven't started yet indicated they will in 2012. And for those of you, 93% of you actually indicated that people in key roles in your organization would benefit from social and mobile support of talent management. Certainly suspect if you're not already investing in these areas, you're planning on it in the not too distant future. Lastly, mobile. Does your organization currently use handheld devices to support the following? Relatively low, actually. So only 3% said approving requisitions, and just thinking to all the clients that we've helped deploy over the years, mobile approvals for requisitions, really it's been a staple of the talent acquisition deployment that we've been involved in. And look down the line here, a steady decrease, completing based learning, searching for and locating experts, which is relatively low. Organizations being the early adopters, and I think that again has to do with more educated buyers and the fact that they've got large swaths of the workforce that justify the investment, maybe already have the devices that are sanctioned by the company to deliver on mobile talent management. So in terms of the recommendations that we have here, when we think about social and mobile support of talent management processes, we don't think about it, in terms of social for the sake of being social or mobile for the sake of being mobile. We think of it in terms of what's going to make your processes more effective based on the needs of your workforce, where they are, where they work on a day-to-day basis, what's going to save them time and help them make sound decisions. To do that, you engage the business back to cross-functional governance. You have a bunch of engineers and HR folks in a room, or consultants like me who like to look at how cool technology is and can make a business process different than it's currently being executed. Engaging the business and really determining what's going to work and what's going to be adopted, and really that is part of an overall definition of what your future state processes should look like. Mapping your current processes, and then defining, once you've got them defined, fit in your new processes and that are support social networking and mobile technologies. These concepts that can and should be piloted. I mean, these are right for pilots. Project teams, look at areas like social performance, maybe using social networking sites, SharePoint, Jive, other popular enterprise collaboration tools to help manage projects and manage content. What about getting feedback on team members and aligning on what goals of the project are, subscribing to pages associated with the project? There are a multitude of use cases that could be used for pilots as it relates to social and mobile. And then lastly, as we discussed earlier, technology comes last. Once you've defined strategy, process, people requirements, then focus on and deploying technologies. Actually brings us to the conclusion of our webinar. We've got some outstanding questions to address in the Q&A, and we'll follow up with folks individually in order to do that, but want to be sensitive to everyone's time. 3 big takeaways again. 2012, somewhat year for HR technology. Number 2, market consolidation is a good thing. Number 3, talent management needs to become more social and more mobile. So I will thank everyone once again for taking the time to spend with Heidi and me today, and turn it back to Tracy.
Thanks, Ann and Heidi, for sharing all those results with us today. So we found today's discussion riveting, and if you've joined us for the survey results webinar part 1 and 2, you're automatically entered in to win a portable USB charger. So if you have any questions or comments about the material covered in today's presentation, please feel free to contact Heidi and Mike directly. From Knowledge Infusion, thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful day.